When I was growing up, every night my parents read bedtime stories to me and my younger brother, Greg. During our Time for All Ages story this morning, I shared my all-time favorite fable, The Magic Thread from the Book of Virtues. Out of all the bedtime stories, that one has stuck with me the most. It has become a touchstone in my family, a shared vocabulary, something we like to remind each other. Another touchstone in my life is the wisdom of legendary basketball coach John Wooden, who was a dear friend of my father's. When I was 10 and my brother Greg was 7, we spent a magical afternoon with Coach Wooden in his Encino condo, about 5 minutes of which were spent looking at his NCAA trophies and numerous awards. The remaining 2 hours were spent in his modest living room, talking and sharing stories. I think Coach Wooden would have liked the story of the magic thread. He told Greg and me that the 2 most important words in the English language are love and balance. He also cautioned us to beware of life's peaks and valleys, not to get too high during the highs, nor too low during the lows. In other words, every life has both high, exciting times and also inevitable disappointments. Coach Wooden believed that for every high or mountain peak, there will be a corresponding valley or low point. So yes, appreciate and celebrate the highs, but keep them in perspective, and similarly, try not to become too overwhelmed by the lows. Keep the faith that they will in turn lead to new highs and peaks. Coach Wooden believed that striving to live evenly and gratefully during every phase of life is the key to happiness. And the more I travel along life's road of peaks and valleys, the more convinced I am that he was right. Ever since I moved away from home to attend college and my brother followed 3 years later, we have lived apart from each other and from our parents, except for brief summers and holidays. My brother living in Los Angeles, me in Indiana, now my brother in New York City, me here in the Bay Area. I love the places I have lived, but I miss my family a lot, and I always look forward to our visits. My dad will remind me to keep this anticipation in check. Can't wait to see you in 3 days, he will say, but let's not pull the magic thread. His point is that there is so much joy and love and life to be squeezed out of those 3 days, those 3 ordinary, everyday days, and we don't want to wish them away as eager as we might be to see each other. Anticipation is a lovely feeling as it buzzes excitedly in your chest, but again, as Coach Wooden would say, everything in moderation, love and balance. We don't want our anticipation to be so consuming that it eclipses everything else. I have a friend, I'll call her Riley, who I have known since 6th grade. She is the type of person who, no matter where she is, can't wait to move on to the next thing. Have you ever met someone like that? I'll give you a few examples. In 6th grade, Riley could not wait to be 7th graders, so we wouldn't be at the bottom of the totem pole anymore. But in 7th grade, she couldn't wait to be 8th graders, because then we would rule the school. In 8th grade, she started counting the months until high school, because she was convinced that high school would be so much more fun. You get the idea. Riley couldn't wait to get her driver's license, then she couldn't wait to go off to college. She graduated college in 3 years because she couldn't wait to get out into the real world and get a real job. Big mistake. She was the first of my friends to get married and the first to have children. It's as if life is a series of check marks and Riley can't wait to check off the next thing and the next and the next. I don't know about you, but looking at life that way just makes me feel exhausted. I like to remind myself of these lines by poet Daniela Kessler. Life is not a race, it is a gift. Enjoy it, don't rush through it. Or, as Coach Wooden liked to quote Cervantes, The journey is better than the end. You might say the journey is better than the destination, or today, the journey is better than the Airbnb. If we are so focused on the end, moving to middle school or high school or college, getting the next job promotion, moving to a bigger house, or our next vacation, or whatever we see as our next life step, then we will miss the beauty of the trip itself and all it has to offer. If I am only looking ahead to visiting my family, I will miss out on coffee with friends, meaningful teaching moments with my students, enjoying a cup of tea while the sun sets from my back porch. The end will arrive soon enough. There is no need to rush towards it. It also doesn't help to worry about the events of our magic thread that are potentially maybe waiting for us up ahead. Mark Twain once said, "I have been through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened." Worrying about the future taints our enjoyment of the present. In the book Awakening Joy, James Baraz and Shoshana Alexander remind us our minds can get stuck worrying about phantom problems that we convince ourselves are real. Reasonable planning about the future can give us direction, but obsessing about what might go wrong puts us in a perpetual state of stress and rarely brings about positive results. And the thing about the future is we never know what it will hold. Instead of worrying about events that might or might not happen, why not open our hearts to the possibilities of the future while remaining present and aware of the details we are sitting with right now? My senior year of college, I was in a long-distance relationship with someone I cared for a lot. We would visit each other every couple of months, and the rest of the time we would talk on the phone about our daily lives. Sometimes we would muse about how great it would be when we both graduated and could live in the same city. Even though I missed him, I was aware not to pull the magic thread, not to let missing him cause me to miss out on my one and only senior year of college. It was a tremendous year with so many gifts. I was living with 3 of my best friends in a little apartment a few blocks from campus. I was studying creative writing, taking classes from one of my favorite writers, Amy Bender. I was living the final pages of a chapter of my life that I would never be able to get back after graduation, when we all scattered around the globe. Those carefree undergrad days, the themed costume parties, the meandering, musing conversations where it felt like we had all the time in the world. I soaked it up gleefully. I was present. I did not pull the magic thread. And the more years that pass, the more my gratitude for this compounds. You see, soon after graduation, my boyfriend and I broke up. Had I pulled the magic thread, I would have rushed through so many amazing memories and adventures with my friends for a future that was just grains of sand slipping through my fingers, never meant to exist in the first place. You might say I would have hurried through a journey to an inn that would have been closed with a no vacancy sign when I arrived. How wasteful that would have been. Not to mention, even if my college boyfriends and I had stayed together, it still would have been a mistake to pull the magic thread. Some of my most cherished memories with my friend Celine, who passed away far too young in a car accident, happened our senior year of college. I treasure those memories. Even memories of silly arguments and grumpy moments, that time we stayed up all night cramming for that terrible geology exam, and the way Celine would passive-aggressively clean the apartment when the rest of us were gone, and then complain that we never helped with the housework, which spiraled into a secret house-cleaning war among all of us, with covert kitchen counter scrubbing and secret vacuuming. I miss it all. I am grateful for it all, every moment. That's the funny thing about life. Sometimes the things that annoy us the most at the time are the very things we miss the most once they are gone. Often we look back on the hard times in our lives, the valleys, as Coach Wooden would call them, and only in hindsight do we realize what purpose they served for us, what we learned from the experiences. what the silver linings are. After all, challenges are often what shape us the most. As the saying goes, a smooth sea does not make for a talented sailor. Sometimes we will even look back fondly on those tough times, even though as we were going through them, we might have yearned to give the magic thread a quick tug. One of the loneliest times of my life was my first semester of graduate school. A California girl born and raised, I suddenly found myself living in a small town in the middle of Indiana, thousands of miles from my family and friends. It was my first real winter with snow, and ended up being one of the coldest on record. I remember calling my mom sometime in the doldrums of February, shivering in my frozen car as I waited for the defroster to kick on, and saying, "Mom, I can't believe people actually live here." Not to mention, I was living alone for the first time and was teaching college students only a couple years younger than I was. I don't think I've ever been more homesick in my life. I could not wait to hop on a plane and fly home for the summer. And yet, like a snow-covered field is lovely in its sparse beauty, that season of my life was also exquisite in its own quiet way. That time of loneliness deepened my relationship with myself. All my safety nets had been cleared away, and I was left with only myself to lean on, myself for company, myself to take care of me when I was sick with the flu. It was a time of reflection and asking questions about what I want and what I need, what my dreams are, and what makes me happy. My comfort zone grew. I became braver in making friends and pursuing connections and sending out my work and writing about what matters to me. Though that was a difficult period of my life that I would not necessarily choose to relive, I look back with a fond nostalgia on my little one-bedroom apartment and my dark cubicle office in the English department and those trudging walks through the slush to the bus stop, my nose and ears frozen from the winter chill. I am grateful for it. Dr. Wayne Dwyer said, "The essence of gratitude is understanding that every moment of your life is something to be grateful for. In this moment, we are experiencing exactly what we need to experience. And this moment is an opportunity to witness and learn something new." Here's the thing about the magic thread. Once it's out for good. You cannot rewind the thread back into its ball any more than you can re-squeeze toothpaste back into the tube. Once a moment has passed, it is past. You cannot go back in time. You cannot have a do-over. You can pause that video you're watching on YouTube, but you can't glance out your window and press pause on a sunset. You can't recall details you never soaked up in the first place. To make meaningful memories, you must live their moments, really live them the first time around. As Virgil said, time is flying, never to return. Plus, the magic thread unspools fast enough on its own, don't you agree? My magic thread seems to unspool exponentially faster with each new year that passes. As the title character in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off notes, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. I think the key is to enjoy every season of life for what it is, rather than wishing for the season to pass so you can move on to the next. Just as life is not a race, happiness is not a prize to be won at a certain milestone or accomplishment. We should enjoy the anticipation of exciting things to come, yes, but true contentment comes from living in the present. As my wise beyond his years younger brother likes to say, every day is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Indeed, like a fancy meal with numerous courses, each with its own unique flavors complementing the others, we should aim to savor each stage of our lives. I once asked my paternal grandfather what time of his life was his favorite. Was it his boyhood in an idyllic Ohio farm town, serving in the Navy and traveling the world, going to college where he met my grandma, or medical school in New York City? Was it opening his own surgical practice when the kids were little or when they were grown? After a moment's reflection, he answered, each and every part of my life has been my favorite in its own way. Even since your grandmother died, it's been very hard, and I miss her dearly. But it's also been a magical part of my life to watch you and your brother and all 9 of my grandchildren grow up. I'm thankful for this best time of my life, too. Perhaps our different stages of life are like our children, and it's impossible to have a favorite. Each is the best stage in its own way, with lessons to teach us and gifts for us to discover. Perhaps my favorite quote from Coach Wooden is this one: make each day your masterpiece. Henry David Thoreau, in his piece Walden, writes, I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to put to rout all that was not life, and not, when I had come to die, discover that I had not lived. Let all of us strive to suck out all the marrow of life. Let us squeeze each precious drop from this one wild and precious life we have each been given. Let us savor every beautiful and wondrous and unrepeatable millimeter of our life's magic thread. So may it be. Amen.